A 44-year-old Chinese man has died of the new coronavirus, the Philippines said on Sunday, in the first fatality from the growing outbreak outside China. The Department of Health said the Philippines now has 2 confirmed cases of the virus, the deceased man and a woman he was travelling with, who arrived in the country on January the 21st. Both are from Wuhan, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, said Health Secretary Francisco Duque.
Over the course of the patient's admission, he developed severe pneumonia. In his last few days, the patient was stable and showed signs of improvement. However, the condition of the patient deteriorated within the last 24 hours, resulting in his demise.
In China, the death toll from the outbreak surpassed 300 as of the end of Saturday, state broadcaster CCTV said, with recorded cases at more than 14,000. The 2 patients in the Philippines had taken 2 Cebu Pacific flights, one from Hong Kong to Cebu and one within the country. Passengers from the flights are being traced, according to the health department, while the airline said cabin crew and pilots had been quarantined and the aircraft disinfected.
Good afternoon, YouTube. I just wanted to share with you a couple of these cases that I've been looking at here. So now the infections top 14,000. There was an interview by a Canadian, the CBC News, in Hong Kong that I would like you to see quickly. So thank you for your attention.
Is what's going on in Hong Kong. Hospital staff there have walked off the job because of their growing concerns about the coronavirus. Our Chris Brown is now in Hong Kong, and he's going to be bringing us coverage from there. Right now, outside one of the largest hospitals in Hong Kong with the latest live details on this strike. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Heather. A lot of anxiety here, certainly from healthcare workers in this city of 7 odd million people. Of course, they are right on the front lines, and the border with China is not far from me here at all. So what we've seen today, the first day of what's going to be, appears to be anyway, rotating strikes. Today it was the turn of non-essential healthcare workers to man the picket lines, and tomorrow it's going to be doctors and nurses. This is all fueled by the anxiety over what happened here 17 years ago with SARS. For a lot of people, the circumstances are very, very similar. A similar virus coming from a similar source, and in that case it left 300 people dead. So that's why you've got the healthcare workers speaking out the loudest today, demanding that the Hong Kong government go further than what it has and seal off this territory from the rest of China, shut down all of its borders, land, sea, and even air. We had a chat with some of the people on the picket line today.
To urge the government to close the borders immediately, to ban the people with Chinese passport or people who have been to China, to stop them from entering to Hong Kong to spread the coronavirus. We are afraid that there will be a community outbreak soon, like what happened in 2003, the SARS outbreak.
Again, as you say, Chris, those hospital workers calling for a full border closure. We heard already today from Carrie Lam. What is she saying? What is the Hong Kong government saying on this?
Well, she took a step towards what they want, but she didn't go all the way. Hong Kong says it will now close 10 of its 13 border crossings. There's still going to be, of course, the airport. That's not been shut down, although some flights have been curtailed, and some of the bridges will still be open as well. But the high-speed trains have been stopped. Carrie Lam said, in explaining why they didn't go all the way, simply that there's too much commerce, too much at stake between Hong Kong and China for them to completely shut things down. Let's hear from her.
Our strategy is really to consolidate as much as possible the existing control points. Now it's really down to, excluding the airport, there are only 2. One is the Shenzhen Bay, the other is the Hong Kong-Macau-Zhuhai Bridge. And the additional benefit of doing that is we are channeling all cross-border traffic into these 2 cross-border control points. And because of the inconvenience that we have caused to people as a result, so the numbers will come down. And I have proven.
So the political context for this, of course, is very important. All summer long, we were here then. We saw the protests against Beijing's rule about, you know, the curtailment of democracy. So you have a lot of distrust already here between many people in Hong Kong and Carrie Lam and her government. So, you know, folks that we've talked to said this can go two ways. One, perhaps if the government handles this well, if the border is sealed off, in their opinion, that might go some way to restoring some of that lost trust. But on the other hand, and perhaps from the healthcare workers we've talked to, maybe a more likely outcome, you're just going to see that sense of anxiety and that distrust with the government increase. Heather.
Chris, really appreciate it. Thank you. Chris Brown is going to be bringing us coverage out of Hong Kong today, live with us this morning outside that.
So I just want to reiterate that SARS also did come from China, and even amongst people that live in Hong Kong, they never forget this gentleman here that reminded us that it would be like SARS, a public outbreak is happening soon, it's imminent. So the purpose of this video was to sort of expose a hypothesis that I've been thinking about the past few days. And that hypothesis is that coronavirus may have been manufactured by Chinese. That's not a statement that I make lightly, but it is something that I want to expose in the public eye just to see what you all think about it. There was one thing that I wanted to expose quickly here. So this is the wrong case. What I wanted to expose was that the U.S. is offering aid to China for the coronavirus and to help them by sending, here we are, turned down U.S. offer to send scientists to fight. Here, this is the exact case. China turned away U.S. offer to send scientists to help fight coronavirus 3 times before finally allowing international experts to come to its aid. So what I find odd, what I find extremely mysterious, I should say, but it's more severe than that, is that the coronavirus has already proven to be already more severe than SARS, according to the death rate of percentage that have been infected. So the mortality rate has been higher, I believe. And they have refused on 3 occasions to let people come in from the U.S. Before allowing other experts to come in, international experts to come in and help them. So why would they do that? That's a question. Why would they refuse aid? People that know this know that the time is of essence. The earlier you can get the virus, you can study it, you can try to figure out how to combat it, let's say, how to synthesize an antivirus or at least preventative treatment. It all depends on how quickly you can get scientists to go in and study it. Time is of the essence. You need to be sure that something like this needs to be contained, but also that all the big brain scientists and so on can come in and actually help you to prevent the death of more human lives, the loss of more human lives internationally, and of course in the country of origin. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, like, why on earth, given the severity of this virus so far, would China refuse aid from people who are willing to take the risk? Already that's a very brave act of charity to try to save human lives, and they refuse. Why? Why did they refuse? 3 times. Why did they refuse? So I'm looking at this. I'm trying to understand China's motivation. What I'm thinking is they prevented people from coming in to study the virus because they don't want those scientists to try to figure out its true origins, to try to figure out on the ground what's happening. Is there anything suspicious going on there, to make an investigation, right? Now, it's not a small thing to say it was manufactured. Perhaps not. Perhaps because anybody who's been there knows that China is rife with conditions that are favorable for a virus to take place. The culture itself, the eating of animals, proximity of animals, the general lack of health, hygiene, corrupted drinking water, very low quality, poor quality air, all kind of things that are very favorable to make the conditions for the virus to come into being. So that's also another hypothesis that I was thinking about as well, that it can be. But what I'm saying is, and there was one more piece of evidence here, that there's actually a new bird flu that just came up in China, H3N8, I think it's called, if you'll just attend here to me.
As if health officials in China don't have enough on their hands with the spreading coronavirus, now officials announced an outbreak of bird flu. China's Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs announced Saturday an outbreak of a highly pathogenic strain of H5N1 bird flu at a farm in the southern province of Yunnan. The virus was discovered on the farm with nearly 8,000 chickens. More than half of them have already died because of the outbreak. China is not alone in trying to tamp down the spread of this virus. Earlier this week, authorities in India started culling chickens and destroying eggs to contain the bird flu virus. And a different strain, the H5N8 virus, has spread throughout Eastern Europe in recent weeks. A bird flu outbreak in China back in 2013 ended up costing $6.5 billion in economic losses, according to UN experts.
Okay, so that's another... I don't take it lightly. I don't take the accusation lightly that I'm making here. But I'm saying that the fact that China doesn't want or didn't want during the crucial initial stage of let's call it preventative to try to mitigate the threat before it became a real threat. And that's the key. Timing is the key for everything. If you can get those people going on the ground and investigating, the sooner we can find a cure or a treatment, or at least prevent people from becoming more sick, providing adequate humanitarian care to those who are already sick. You don't refuse doctors or nurses or scientists coming in to help you to solve the problem. You don't. If you do, it's a telling sign that you don't care about your own citizens, nor health, nor anything else. As if the deaths of potentially 100 million people will be irrelevant to you. That's a telling sign to me. It's very suspicious. The fact that this is a global problem makes it even more China's responsibility to ensure that scientists come in to study it, to help them solve the problem. It come late, January 28th already, nearly 3 days ago. A whole month has already expired or more since the outbreak, that they prevent people from coming in. And it's precious time. It's time that the virus is spreading. It's time that people are dying and becoming more infected. On what grounds do they have to refuse? That's my question. Why? Why? So, 17,000 confirmed cases of the virus in China. More than 360 people have died, all but in one country. 171 cases have been reported in more than 24 other countries and regions, including the US, where 11 cases have been confirmed. It's a very severe, severe problem. And the potential for it to become, worse than SARS seems to be an adequate evaluation. And I just don't know what to say. I find it very suspicious. Coronavirus angers boils over in China. Doctors plead for supplies. It's like even in their own country, they're handling it with very poor responsibility. Doctors demanding they need supplies. 1 week into the lockdown, anger in China deepened. Shortages of hospital beds, medical supplies, and doctors. They even have a shortage, and they're refusing aid. Sign of growing frustration. Relative infected with the virus beat up a doctor at the hospital Wuhan. Oh my Lord! It's very, very disturbing to see them behave in this manner, and I think it's worthy of consideration that you take into account the fact that China refused help during the early stage. How many lives they could have saved, prevented from further infection, or even prevented from death, we don't know. But this is the path that was taken. So again, I reiterate, 3 times they refused aid. 3 times. So I hope this video will encourage your thinking. Perhaps, I don't know, you don't have to agree with my hypothesis or not, but I wanted to put it out there just to reinforce the message and see how people felt about that. So thank you for your time and your attention, and take care. Bye-bye.